Karen. Welcome to the Miracles Happen Fertility Podcast.
We're excited to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.
Man, I've been waiting a long time for this. You guys are fantastic. I got to be on your podcast, the Skeptic Metaphysicians, and I'm so delighted to be able to interview you back, because if y'all listeners, watchers haven't listened to or seen yet their podcast, whoa. You gotta check it out.
Anybody that likens us to an exclamation by Keanu Reeves is good in our books.
Good people.
Yes.
We're done. We're good.
Dear Keanu. All right. So first, if you guys can say, I'm going to tell you. So when I interview folks, I like to do a little research, right? So doing research on you guys. No, I'm like, where's their stuff? Who are these folks? And I got a little bio, and then one little episode, Will, where you're talking about personal growth, and like two of my favorite books too. I was like, what? I need to hang out with these two.
We've been trying to get you to do that for a long time, Doc. I don't understand why we haven't done it.
We need to hang out.
Yes,
definitely.
But anyway, so I want to hear about how, what have you done historically? I know some basic things, but I'd love for folks to hear that. And then how did you come to do this podcast?
You go first.
Who would like to start?
Well, I was going to say ladies first, but
nope.
All right. So I come from strange roots. My dad had actually, thanks for agreeing so vehemently, Karen. My dad raised me on all things unexplained, like the UFOs. He saw a UFO. He's from Cuba. He claims that he saw a UFO when he was in Cuba with a bunch of other people. And since then, he's always been fascinated by it. He's always watched the whole In Search Ofs by Leonard Nimoy and all those shows. And as a kid, I watched them along with him. On the other side, my mother had all the Carlos Castaneda books on the bookshelves and all that, Cracking the Cosmic Egg. And as an inquisitive young kid, I would pick them up and start thumbing through them. And my mother would have a fit saying, no, you're not ready for that yet. So of course, the minute I went on my own, first thing I did was visit Carlos Castaneda, right?
Of course.
Right. So I was interested in all this stuff from the very beginning. So when I went out on my own, I started exploring some of these modalities myself because I was really curious about it, but I was not one of those guys that could just accept it sight unseen. I don't care what Carlos Castaneda says, I want to experience the stuff myself to be able to believe in it. So I threw myself into experiences in order to find something that could prove to me that there's more than this three-dimensional world that we live in. I started down that path, but then life gets in the way and we move away from it until right as COVID was starting to hit. I had what can only be described as an absolute existential breakdown. I started realizing, really from one fell swoop, I realized that I had been living incorrectly. Let's put it that way. I had been making stupid mistakes and decisions. I had been living very surface level, nothing of substance. And I was doing things that were specifically meant to sabotage any success or happiness that I could possibly find. In that breakdown, realizing that I was not the guy that I thought I was, I started doing research into mental health, only to find that wasn't enough. So then I happened upon an old friend called Conversations with God. And when I picked that book up again, it suddenly all fell right into place, exactly what I needed and what I've been looking for. So then I started doing these audio diaries, for lack of a better word. On my phone, I would just read a passage of Conversations with God, and I would talk to my phone about what it meant to be, what it meant to me, and how I was audibly processing all this stuff that I was reading and going through. And then I took that a step further and created the podcast that allowed me to talk to people in different modalities to really dive into each one and see if one or the other really resonated with me. And then that went off into its own thing, which became now the Skeptic Metaphysicians. That was a long, A long introduction. Sorry about that.
No. That's exactly the meat of what I was looking for. Like, what drove you to begin this? Because you interview a lot of people with a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different skills and tools and things. It's amazing. And I wondered how, this is what I was digging for. Like, why? What's the impetus for this?
Yeah.
So
That's
so
it in a
thank you.
nutshell. Sure.
Yes.
There you go.
How about you, Karen?
I'm just along for the ride.
No. No.
Liar.
My story is a lot shorter. I went to Catholic school for 12 years, but we weren't really Catholic. It was just better than the public schools in the area. My parents were divorced. My mom was working a lot. And so there wasn't any sort of spiritual focus in our family. I mean, it wasn't frowned upon. It just wasn't, there was no time, I guess. It just wasn't an important part. So then I went to college and started out in engineering, switched to anthropology, got another degree in art. When you combine art and anthropology, you have to be into all of this stuff. there's no option. There's no choice.
Really now?
Yeah. I mean, I lived not too far from a very well-known, at least in Florida, a very well-known spiritual community called Casadega. So I spent a lot of time there. A lot of the anthropology courses I took, some of them involved different religions, some of them involved just all kinds of things that got me interested in this. And so I had interesting experiences growing up. Unlike Will, I was never someone that needed proof. I just, what you feel, what's there and what's don't, at least for me.
Yeah.
So we always say on the show, he needs the proof, but I just believe it. I don't believe everything, but I believe a lot of it.
Because you can feel it. You can feel the difference.
Yeah. And I also don't feel like I can say what someone else is telling me isn't true just because I haven't witnessed it or haven't seen it. So I kind of, instead of prove me right, it's prove me wrong. I don't know. It's a little bit the opposite of what I would say with Will.
Yeah. I think on my side though,
you had your chance.
Defend myself.
This is all about me now.
This is why I love you guys. Yay.
I'll defend myself later. Go ahead, Karen.
There's nothing to, it's not, anyway, there's nothing to defend you. I'm just telling this is not about you. So,
to be clear, you guys are a couple.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I didn't say that in the get-go. So just, this is why the banter is hilarious.
In case someone out there didn't already figure that out based on this interchange.
Right. In spite of and because of our differences, we are a pretty well-matched couple. But yeah, so Will started doing this and invited me to co-host with him along the way a few times. And it was a lot of fun. We both liked it. We both come from such different mindsets, or at least we used to. So it made the questions a little bit more interesting because it appealed to a broader scope of people. So we just decided to rope me in full time, and here I am.
Yeah, well, that's what I love about the vibe between the two of you, because you are so different from one another. Then people get this full 360 view based on your questions and your own insights and experiences. So it's so fantastic to hear both of you asking the questions and what you're curious about. That's what the undercurrent is, though, that you're curious. Now, what's happening here? What exactly is happening? And that is the crux of today's episode, is because I talk to my listeners and my own clients about not immediately buying everything that I say, not immediately picking up what I'm putting down all the time, right? But also not discarding it immediately either, right? So when I think of the word skeptic, I think of, I've seen these sort of debates, is there life after death kind of stuff, and skeptics are like, come at me, prove it, right? But that to me is like the complete other end of this, I'm going to buy everything that you're selling. Where is this, from your guys' point of view, what is a healthy skeptic like? What does that look like?
Well, it's interesting because as we're talking, I think yesterday or the day before, someone just released an article that talked about the fact that our brains might still be aware after we're dead for a certain amount of time.
Like 20 minutes or something?
20 minutes, I believe is what they said.
Oh, that's interesting. Haven't read that one.
So we posted it on our Instagram because my question was, after reading the article, Is this something that finally debunks what people think happens in the woo world after we die, or is this just science trying to explain something that's really unexplainable, right? Because basically they're scientists and they're trying to measure it based on scientific means. Once your brain no longer registers, they can't measure anything from that point on. So do you believe that once your brain is gone, it's gone and there's nothing else beyond that? Or is there now, do we go to a different level where science can no longer measure? And we've got some interesting responses, but most of the people agree that though science is very useful to a large extent, it has its limitations. And I think that the show, the skepticism, what we talk about, is really based in that nebulous area beyond science. Here's where I get to defend myself. I grew up in Connecticut, New York, that area, and people out there, you had to hustle, right? There were a lot of hustlers. And if you didn't know how to hustle the other person, then you were going to get hustled yourself.
Sure.
So my mindset going into this was, I'm not getting hustled, right? I'm going to get down to the bottom of it to see whether this stuff is real. I'm not going to let anyone take advantage of me or make me look like a fool. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that do that in this space.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we wanted to come at this topic with a healthy dose of skepticism, not to say, yeah, that's a load of crap, but rather help me to make sense of it in my mind, where I don't have to just sight unseen believe what you say, right? The advent of quantum physics helps a lot with that.
Yeah.
So it's really about accepting that there's things out there that you don't understand and that it's okay, but don't just because someone says it, make it be the fact, because nothing could be further from the truth.
And I totally agree with that. But the interesting thing about you, Will, is, you would not accept it regardless of if it was just because someone said it or if there were facts. So now you're like, well, now you're saying, okay, well, maybe, not just I'm accepting it, carte blanche. It's like, okay, maybe. And I like that.
And I think that comes from experiences, right? When I was first looking into this stuff,
you had experiences.
I had experiences. Yes, I had experiences, but I knew that there was something else out there. But Doc, speaking about your interview, for example, when we talked to you and about your experience when all this started happening, you started, babies were started like tapping you on the shoulder and you go, what? Get away from me. Right?
WTF. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So a part of me is like, I've never experienced anything remotely close to that. So how can I wrap my head around the fact that you are, right? The old me would say, yeah, I need some proof. I need some proof because you could be saying anything. Whereas now it's more about, okay,
maybe
that might not be my path, but I believe that you are incredibly credible. I believe everything you're saying to me. So somewhere you're experiencing a reality that I'm not. And the reason why I'm able to move in that direction is because I'm starting to experience reality differently than some of my friends who I grew up with, who think the way I used to think now. So in changing that mind space, I started realizing I don't have all the answers. My reality is not the only reality out there. We just have to be sure that we're talking to the right person.
Was there something that caused that shift? Or are you talking about back when you realized, oh shit, I'm not living the life that I really need to be living? Was it back then?
It's an ongoing thing for me. There was one experience when I was a few years ago that really led me on the path of saying, well, I'll be there. This is something that I need to look into. Everyone talks about the oneness of it all, right? The connectedness of everything. And I'd never experienced that. Since we started the show, I meditate just about every day. I feel it when I don't. But even through my meditations, I've never really felt that oneness, that connectedness with all things. But I did experience it a few years ago when I was whitewater rafting, of all things.
Ah, yes.
So when you whitewater raft, your life passes before your eyes several times when we were in Cat 4, Cat 5 water rapids. So we were in the big boys. And there are times when we're fighting to stay afloat. And then there are times after we finish the rapids where it's super calm and relaxing. And it's just you and nature. We were rafting down the Colorado River, so the canyon walls were next to us. Right? It's just beautiful and serene. And then all of a sudden, oh, here we go again. And then we're back into the wet waters, right? Well, after 3 or 4 or 5 of those whitewater and calm phases, there was one where we hit a calm phase, and all of a sudden, everybody, we had 2 boats, and everyone in the boats were looking around because there was a monarch butterfly, flitting around us, and everyone's lifting their finger up and going, oh, because they wanted it to land on their finger. And I'm going, yeah, right, whatever. And then all of a sudden, something said to me, it wasn't me, something said to me, lift your hand up, it's going to land on you. And I didn't lift my hand up. It lifted my hand for me. I know what it sounds like. Okay. I'm a skeptic. I know what it sounds like. Something lifted my hand. I put my hand up, and sure enough, that damn butterfly landed on my finger and nobody else's. And in that moment, as I looked at this butterfly that had chosen to land on mine instead of everybody else's, I realized that I was connected completely to everything. I was connected to that butterfly. I was connected to the water I was on. I was connected to the canyon walls next to me. I was connected to everything. And I was like that until the butterfly flitted away. Everyone's asking, oh my gosh, how'd you do that? How'd you get to land on your finger? I didn't hear them at all. It was a complete tunnel focus, living in the now. Talk about Eckhart Tolle. I was living in the now, and I was suddenly completely connected. And then after the butterfly left, I lost it. But I always remember that. And that's the thing that really helps me to understand I don't know anything.
Yeah. That's the point that I was going to get to. But first, another comment. Remember 2 minutes ago when you said you've never had even remotely an experience like spirit baby work? Yeah, you can't claim that.
No, I know.
You can't claim that.
I talk a big game, but ultimately, sure. Yeah.
But what I was going to say was, you think that you have this, I don't know, sort of wall, like, nope, I'm an observer. I'm just looking at what's happening. But then when you have an experience like that, you can finally I get it. But then you're right, because as soon as those first babies that connected with me went away, as soon as the message was done and the work was done, I was like, no, I made that shit up. That's crazy.
Right.
No, that did not happen.
Well,
so what about, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Will also needs quite a few taps on the head sometimes to get the message.
Yes, I did too. Yeah, I did too.
That's a good
point.
And
that actually brings me back to you, Karen, too, because you were on the opposite end, right? Okay, I'm open, right? I believe, whatever, right? So do you find being with Will, or maybe other people in the same kind of mindset, that it kind of brings you back to this middle place? Because I find there's this dichotomy, right? You're either a total skeptic, no, show me the proof, or you're I believe it all, fairies and everything. Right. So do you find you moved a little bit, or you're still?
Well, I don't know that I would say I was ever on the complete I believe it all. I was a little bit, I was a smart cookie in school, and I did really well on logic. I was very always, I see you, good math, science, but I also just could not deny the experience I've had or the feelings that I've had. So I kind of, it wasn't, it's not like I went around spouting, there's ghosts or spirits or it's all happening, but I knew it. Does that make sense? But some things we have, we have had some interviews, and I think we might've talked about this with you, where you hang up and you're like, wow, that just happened. So it's, I don't believe in everything. But I also find that there's so much more joy when you do believe. I like the curiosity. I like the experience of, I don't know, the feelings that are involved with believing. So that kind of feeds me.
That is such an excellent point, Karen.
Yeah.
My entire life, talking about is there life after death, I'm thinking, nope. Once you're done, you're done. You lights out, game over, right? Karen, in the middle of all these conversations, and she and I obviously take it off the microphone as well. We talk about this stuff all the time. And she said something to me that smacked me right between the eyes. And it's changed my perspective on everything since that conversation. And basically she said, maybe you're right. Maybe there is nothing after we die, but maybe there is this life after death. We don't know. But isn't it nicer to live your life thinking that there's something else beyond this physical plane? Isn't that a better experience? Does that make you happier? And I said, well, son of a bitch, you are so right. You're right. You're right.
I hate that.
Yeah, because you could live your life in either direction. It's much nicer to think that there's something else. And if there's not, once we die, we're not going to know any better. So why not?
Yeah, if there's nothing there,
May as well.
Right.
May as well. Right. Right. That brings me back to, I was like 22 years old working. I just vivid. Like I can remember it like it was yesterday on the bike with my my roommate at the time. She was like, no, we're just done after we die. No, we're just, that's it. That's it. I'm like, no, don't you believe in God? We're like at the middle of the show. And it's true though. Isn't it nicer though to think, oh, maybe. But for her, it was this religion. Now there's somebody that's going to judge me. And so I wonder about that. Do you guys, because it sounds like you both grew up in more of an open, like curiosity family. Yeah. Although there was like this Catholic flavor for you, Karen, but I'm not sure about you, Will.
Yeah. I think my mom wanted me to be Catholic because we went to Catholic school or Catholic church as well when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
But she was a searcher. She went from religion to religion, searching. And there are long periods of time when we didn't go to church at all. But my base religion, I would say, is probably Catholicism. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you get ever, because there's something about religion that's also, not something, everything about religion is quite metaphysical, right? Or it's like, really? Angels come down and, like what?
Right,
miraculous healings and wine turning or blood turning into wine or vice versa, whatever it is. What do you guys make of that?
I mean, I've kind of cherry picked my religion, from all the different things I've studied. I think to me, essentially, when it comes right down to it, the way that all religions and stuff were originally created were to explain things. I do believe there's something after death. I think that unfortunately, religions have been manipulated a lot to be a form of power, a form of control. So what our present day religions are, a lot of that, I don't believe in the devil. So I'm not worried about what's going to happen after death because I just chose not to believe that. So for me, I think, I've just taken what I think are the most, it sounds like such a dumb thing to do. I like to believe in, but I kind of have. And it's just
you're not
nice
dumb.
Experience.
No.
No. At the end of the day, religion is just another path, right? So if Catholicism works for you, bully for you. That's you go full steam ahead. I am with you 100%. I will support you. Where I have a problem is when the same Catholic people say, "Oh, you're going to hell because you don't believe what I believe." Well, now those are fighting words, because just because you believe one thing doesn't mean what I believe is any less valid than what you believe. Did you watch? I don't remember what we talked about on your show because it was a while ago. But did we talk about What Dreams May Come?
No.
Okay. Richard Matheson, who is was a prolific science fiction writer. I was a big science fiction fan growing up. Richard Matheson wrote a lot of the episodes of The Twilight Zone and things like that. And he wrote a book. It was actually a short story called What Dreams May Come. They made it into a movie with Robin Williams.
Yes.
And the crux of that, and it just so happens I'm reading the third book of Conversations with God right now, and God actually calls this exact thing out because he asks what happens after we die. And What Dreams May Come posits that whatever it is that you think is going to happen when you die is exactly what happens when you die, because we talk about manifesting in this world right now, the three-dimensional world, right? But when we pass, we can manifest much, 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 much faster. It's an instantaneous manifestation. So if that's the case, then then how can we not create our own reality once we die?
Yeah. And I can see the workings, because that is the workings, the brain workings of somebody who's not like, show
Yes.
me. And it's
Yes.
not the workings of somebody going, I believe it all. It's like, wait a minute, here's reason and logic, and here's Karen's like, how do I feel about it, right? It's like both. In the therapy world, we call that wise mind, living from this logical, linear thinking, but also bringing in this emotional, intuitive place. They call it wise mind.
Karen, I think
But
she just called us wise.
You're wise. You're so wise.
Combined.
I think that's
combined.
why I said
Sienna,
us.
our daughter. Perfect.
That's why I said us. Yeah. I think that's a first for us, actually.
So, I have to say, Will, and this is a huge change that I've seen in you also. You talk about how, and I don't know if this is TMI, but I'm saying it anyways, how you don't like when people take religion and they're like, you have to believe as I believe and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you recall some of our biggest arguments that we had were you doing exactly that, but the opposite. You were on the anti-religion side saying, no, if you believe in religion, you're an idiot and da, 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 da. I mean, it was really intense. We would get, and I'm like, why? We would get into these big arguments about that. So it's so refreshing to hear, how much you have grown and evolved in that regard.
Oh, thanks for bringing it back around. Because at first I was going to say, can you take the license plate of that bus that just ran over me when you outing me like that? But yes,
it's important.
You're right.
I want, and that's the thing I want people to know. I mean, this podcast that we do, it has been a journey of self-discovery and self-exploration as well. We're not just trying to have some really fun topics to entertain people, which I mean, obviously we do want to entertain people, but it's been part of our life as well. And I just want people to know that.
Yeah. No, we definitely have fun on the show. We have a lot of fun on the show, but we're learning along with our audience. And nobody, I would say, more than me, because there has been a complete change in who I am in the course of the last 2 years that we've been doing this show. I mean, complete change. The show's name is the Skeptic Metaphysicians for a reason. I was just talking to Karen about, we might have to change the name of the show, because I'm not sure I would call myself a skeptic anymore. I'm more pragmatic now, where I know there's stuff out there, but I got to figure out what really resonates with me and what doesn't, all the while learning along the way.
Well, maybe we just assume that that's the name of all of our audience, that they're the Skeptic Metaphysicians, and we're presenting them with this information.
Oh, see,
there you go.
That's what I love about you. You just answered all of our questions right there.
So you're the brilliant one.
You know what? Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
So to kind of circle back a little bit, when I asked you, Karen, about, hey, does hanging out with Will, has it moved you more towards the middle? It sounds like no, it's like the opposite. Will has moved through his own discovery.
Pulling him this way.
Yeah. And it also sounds like the crux of that very first question that I asked was, what does it mean to be a healthy skeptic? Is that you say, I don't know a lot, but I'm also curious. I don't know, but I'm curious. Let's take a look, see what happens.
Yeah. I think what we learned the most during the show is that we're all saying the exact same thing. We're just using different words to say it. So it doesn't matter what path you're on, as long as you're on a path that makes you feel fulfilled, then that's what you should be doing. There is no guarantees that any of this stuff is real. There's also no guarantees that any of this stuff is not real. What I'm finding I'm doing is deciding how I want to live, what mindset I want to use to move forward in whatever's left over in my life. And what I find is that being accepting of everyone else's stories is what makes me feel more comfortable. Where, to Karen's point before, I was like, no, bullshit.
Yeah, you suck.
Yeah, bullshit. That's bullshit. So I never say that's bullshit to anybody anymore. I might go, really? But
that's true.
But at the end of the day, if you believe it, then you go, and I will support you and go, doesn't resonate for me, but for you, who knows? Because like we talked about on the show, a lot of times people that we don't resonate with, some of them are some of the biggest downloaded episodes we've ever had. And we've had people reach out and say, hey, I love this person. Thank you for introducing us to them because they are amazing. And we look at each other like,
Huh.
are they, are we, is
Really?
that the same person? Do we,
Let me re-listen to
okay.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this line of idea, this line of thinking is, I think, what's useful for my listeners, because we're talking about fertility stuff and creating a family, and a lot of folks with fertility get just stuck, and they just listen to whatever professionals, including myself, tell them, do all the things, you need to do all this. But what you're saying and how you two live your life is you are open, but you still choose inside what resonates. That's the word you used. What resonates with me. So if somebody wants to like fly to such and such island to pray to a fertility god and it feels right to them, okay. If somebody wants to do 10 rounds of IVF, okay, if it feels right to you.
And they're
Right.
probably going to have more success doing something that feels right than doing
Good
something that goes
point.
against everything in their soul.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent point. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to bring you on the show, because to me, healthy skepticism is, you're listening to a scientist, an MD, a DO, who's saying, here is the science, here are the, statistics, here's what's going to take you to the place that you want to go, but it doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now what?
And we
Now
check
what?
all of that stuff in regular life. Like I'm getting some insurance right now for a property, and I'm like looking at the reviews. Are they scams? Are they, like all of that stuff. So if we do it with that, then it makes sense to do it with the other aspects. And we're just inviting the people that are listening to say, okay, here's an option. Check it out. Do your research. We're not saying this is the way to go, but it's an option. It could work for you.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And for the past year and a half or however long it's been, we've been interviewing a lot of people that do different things.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're taking it a step further, and we're actually going and experiencing these modalities. We just released an episode about the harmonic egg, where we actually
people
went.
must listen.
Oh my gosh,
good one.
it is miraculous. It is unbelievable. But we went because you hear about these things. You're like, how can be sitting inside of an egg really do anything for you, right? Well, what's the
That sounds so weird.
It does.
A large man-made egg.
It really does, right? Right. And who is big enough to lay this thing? Holy smokes, right? But so we experienced it for ourselves. So we then got in front of the microphones and said, holy crap, you got to experience it, because we just did. And here is our firsthand experience. This is no longer a he said, she said conversation. This is a holy smokes, we experienced it, and this is what we felt. You might have a different experience, but this is at least a starting point for you when you go and explore your own resonance with this harmonic egg. And we're doing that more with more things. We just went and did a session with someone that did hypnosis. We're going to go sit with some of those vibration bowls. So we're going to try to do more experiential things so that we can say, I don't know if this is bullshit or not, but this is what it did for me.
What a good plan.
What you can expect.
I love this. And also in that episode, what I want to highlight for people, again, circling back to this healthy skepticism, is that, Karen, you said, my first session, it was nice. It wasn't miraculous.
Right.
But it was nice. I fell asleep. It was nice. Yeah. But then.
But then.
Holy mamacita.
Yeah.
Then came the addiction. No.
Yes, and I'm going back next week.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's like a tattoo. You can't just go once for a tattoo. You got you keep going back and back. No, but no, this is we encourage everyone to listen to the show, because it is something that floored us. Not anything we expected. And we go into specifics on the show. And we just didn't want it to be nebulous, right? We wanted to make sure people know this is what we experienced. Can't explain it, can't say it was this, but I can tell you it's really coincidental if this healing that happened didn't happen because of the egg.
Right. And that's the research that I love that you do. You're like, we cannot explain this other than this egg, this harmonic egg had an effect, and the color changing when you had a different thought and a different vibration. Oh my God. And you guys have to listen to this episode. Okay. It's absolutely amazing. And I do wonder about it being effective for fertility. So I'm just saying.
I mean, It's incredible. And we're not affiliated with that. We're not getting paid by any of these people. So these are our genuine experiences.
Yeah,
Good, bad, and ugly.
We are not monetizing the show at all right now. We're not getting a kickback from anybody. We're not asking for any money. We're not doing one of those sponsored reviews. None of that is real. To Karen's point, this is all just unbiased. Here's what we experienced. So.
And in fact, we do, see if these providers will give even a discount to some of our listeners that want it.
That would be amazing.
So sometimes
because I've already said there's one an hour for me, so
it is so worth the drive. It really is worth the drive.
Yeah, and it's really not very expensive either, all things considered. It's really it's a really good well, at least the location near me in Portland, Oregon. But so you, and this is why I want people to listen to you guys too, because this is only one interview, but if you listen to how you guys ask questions, even when you interviewed me for your podcast, it wasn't like, oh, and did you, and what about this and what about that? It was like, yeah, but what about this?
Yeah.
It really is. And it's true, right? It's like, you need to be discerning like that. I had my cousin, right? He sent me a video from his outside of his house, and he's like, oh my God, what do you think this is? Because now that I'm psychic medium, people are like, can you talk to my uncle? Right. So he sent me, what is this? What is this? And I'm like, Andres, it's a bird. Look at the shadow on the floor. Okay. Right. Come on. Right. Yeah. You got to be discerning though, right? You can't get all caught up in stuff.
That's true.
We're not, our mission, our goal is not to debunk anything. Right? That's not what we want to do. We say it in the intro to the show. We want to believe. We're like Mulder. Like, we want to believe.
Yes.
But you got to do something more than just say this happened. Right? Like, what if it was just a bird? Like, what if it's just a bird? Have you thought about that? Did you drink a lot that day and you saw something that wasn't a bird? Right? You got to ask the questions, because otherwise we're not doing anybody any favors. Right? We're doing everybody a disservice.
Exactly. And honestly, it was scary to him. So now he's living in fear, not knowing, oh, it's just a bird on the, just look at the shadow on the ground, right? Like, yeah. So, this question just popped in my head, and it's sort of related, but not. Can I ask you, Will, about joining a witch's, what do you call it?
Coven.
Yes.
Coven. Yes. I don't know why this popped in my head, but I listen to my intuition. I have to ask it because somebody out there needs to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell me about that?
Sure. It was one of those things where I need to feel it for myself to know whether it's real or not. And I became a Reiki practitioner because I wanted to feel it. I had joined a Reiki circle in this particular place I used to go to every Friday. After they closed the store, they would align the chairs in a big circle, and people would sit, and Reiki practitioners would go on behind you and give you Reiki. And I went a couple of times. I'm like, am I feeling it? I don't know if, I wasn't sure. So I, being who I am, I vocalized that I don't know if this is real or not to the teacher. And she said, well, why don't you put your money where your mouth is? Come and become a practitioner so you could feel it for yourself. So I did that. I went to the class, and of course, everyone, we're practicing our hand positions, and 2 by 2, they brought us into another room, and they would attune us to these energies. And when you come back, you're supposed to put your hands back on the person that's on the massage tables to continue practicing your hand positions. And everyone, as they come out, going, ooh, ah, oh, ooh, ah, and I'm going, come on, give me a flipping break. How could you going into another room and come out all of a sudden change everything, right? So it's my turn, and I go and I get into that room, and I kneel down and close your eyes, and doing all this stuff and whatever. And I come out, I'm feeling no different. I'm going, this is severe bullshit. Now I know for sure, but okay, I'm going to continue because I already paid for the class. Let me just finish the day out. And I go to put my hands on the person on the table, and oh my God, can I not ever say a thing about anyone ever again, because the energy that was coming out of my hands was so palpable. I felt it so strongly that I could not deny at that point that there was something going on here that I did not understand.
Did you make those noises?
I made even worse noises because I couldn't believe it. So then it's written all over my face, and the teacher said to me, well, if you think that's amazing, you should join our coven so you could see what else we can do.
Aha.
And I said, ding, 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 sign me up, baby. Right. Bait and switch in a big way, right? I shouldn't say that. But, so yeah, I joined the coven, and the whole process of initiating into a coven, you have to be an apprentice, or they call it a neophyte, for 13 months, a year and a day, actually is what it is, a year and a day. And through that year and a day, you're learning about the traditions and all that kind of stuff. You don't really get into any of the nitty gritty, like the really fun stuff, until you're initiated. But once you're initiated,
you were dedicated. Yeah, that's a lot of time.
Right. There's a lot that goes on in these covens that you don't want just anyone to be privy to. Right? So yeah, Karen knows a couple of them.
Oh, there's a story to tell there. Okay.
Oh, there's quite a few stories to tell. So they really want to make sure that you're committed to it. You're not just some person going in to infiltrate the coven and do an expose or whatever, that kind of. So there is a commitment that go into it.
Of course.
And I got to say, it is not for me. But I will also say that it is gorgeous. It is an absolutely beautiful religion that is nothing but wonderful feelings and appreciation for nature and everything in it. And I applaud anyone whose path it is, because it is beautiful. It truly is beautiful. But it's not for me, because at the time that I was joining the coven, initiating, I was very pragmatic, very skeptical. And it felt to me, I should have said this story earlier, I never want to be seen as that guy who sits and worships the moon, because that was what primitive man does. Right? They couldn't explain something. So, it's the moon. It must be the moon. It must be the moon. And they have this false God image of the moon as the one that does all these things. So I didn't want to be seen as that. And the rituals inside of a coven is very similar. I mean, you are praying literally to the moon, right? You're drawing down the moon, and you have a goddess and you have a god, and they do believe in the wheel of the world. So there is the 4 seasons, and you call in the quarters. It's all very ritualistic, but it made me feel like I was back in church. And that wasn't a good fit for me, because it was too ritualistic. But I completely understand why, because it's all about focusing your energies and focusing your intent to make things happen. And we just talked a little bit earlier about manifesting. That's really that's what they're doing. They're using these rituals to laser focus their thoughts into making something happen. They create a spell. They write it down. They do a concoction. All these different things that they do in an effort to focus their intention to make something happen. And that's really smart in a lot of ways. It was too much for me.
Yeah, but you can understand why it was perfect for them.
Absolutely.
And others who would.
Absolutely.
That's super. And were you two together or married or dating
that was
before
BK.
Okay,
Before Karen.
before Karen.
Yeah.
Cool. What a way to like immerse yourself in something just because you're curious. I mean, that is amazing.
Yeah. I think Karen can speak to the fact she's always been super adventurous. So she throws herself into different experiences that I would go, you are flipping insane to do that. But we're like in that sense where I threw myself into experiences because I want to explore like cool metaphysical, spiritual things of the mind. Whereas hers are much more physical. Like she just went hang gliding a little while ago. Like how amazing.
You can't say that's not spiritual though.
It was absolutely.
Okay.
We were
Oh
a
my
mile
gosh.
above the earth.
Yeah.
And you just feel like you're the energy and the breeze. And I was having my thoughts and it was amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just sold me on going because I didn't think of it as a spiritual thing. It was just like,
oh yeah. Oh, it's so spiritual. I know sometimes it takes someone outside of the wife to, yeah. My husband and I went
Karen,
skydiving.
Did you say something, Karen? I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. You've been skydiving?
For our 10th wedding anniversary, my husband, I wanted to get, because I'm a giant, massive, nerdy Elvis fan. Okay, don't judge.
No,
but
love Elvis.
We wanted to love Elvis. And the new movie, oh my God, huge plug for it. It's so amazing. Anyway, so I wanted to go to Vegas and get remarried by Elvis, right? And then I thought, I guess that's just for me. We should probably not be selfish, Maria. so, so we went skydiving and I thought, oh, it's this amazing adventurous thing. And I was freaked out and it was great, but oh, wow, was it spiritual?
Wow.
I mean,
and there is an Elvis connection because I'm
yeah.
sure once you landed, you were all shook up.
Oh, God.
Sorry.
This is my life. When it's not the podcast, it's jokes like that.
And usually there's
That
jokes.
was a good one, though.
And usually there's jokes like that in the podcast.
Well,
So
yeah, that's true. too.
Yes, dad jokes, and we are done. No, I'm just kidding.
hey, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
Highly.
Shh,
I know. You got it. But highly recommend hang gliding. Then that's amazing. But also, things like whitewater rafting. That's what it besides the butterfly. So spiritual, and that's why this witches coven. Appreciating nature as much as they do, and because it is so spiritual. People think, oh, it's just a tree, but actually, there's energy coming off of that. And well, anyway, that's a skeptical thing we can talk about too. Is there?
I mean, yeah.
But there is.
Measurable.
When I have a butterfly in my finger, the tree is absolutely something. That is for sure.
Yes. Oh, all right, you guys. Well, I so appreciate this conversation. I really want to hang out with you guys, like in person for a beer or
So much
something.
fun.
Yeah.
Have such a good time.
It's just a matter of making it happen.
I think it's so doable.
Gotta manifest.
And you guys would love my husband too, okay? Because he's very much like, when this started happening for me, he was like, okay, babe, all right, okay. And then he came home one day and I was like, okay, so his mom passed away shortly after we got married. I said, so your mom said, yes, that was her in the truck. He was like, oh, fuck. Okay, all right then, this is the thing. So anyway, yes, yeah. I think we would have a great time. And I really appreciate your insights. I really hope that people get at least a little, tutelage on how to really be open, but not, totally like, yay, or no, prove it to me. Where do you think people should start, Phil? Listen with that. Where do you think people should start with this, sort of balanced openness to stuff?
Karen.
With our
I
podcast.
know. Yay! Okay, nice plug.
That's a good point.
Brilliant.
Our tagline is Metaphysics 101. So if you're interested, if you're curious about this stuff, you can always. It's very easy, very non-threatening. You just listen to a show and you see what resonates, what doesn't.
And one thing that people will find is that a lot of our guests that we've interviewed that do all sorts of incredible things and have had amazing experiences are all just what you would call like regular people, accountants, PR people. We had a computer person on the other day. So it's not just like, the kind of freaky hippie people. There's everybody.
Yeah. And I would go a little further. If you don't want to listen to the podcast, if you don't want to meditate, if you don't want to, right, there's all these things that people say you should do to start off down this path. But the number one thing I would say to do, and it is not for everyone, but if you're serious about looking into this stuff and want to go down this road, get yourself outside of your comfort zone. Growth happens when you are outside your comfort zone. For a long time, I am a resort traveler. I do not travel if there's not a 5-star restaurant somewhere and a very comfortable bed and a bathroom right in my room. Karen, on the other hand, has backpacked across half the world by herself and has had these incredible experiences because it was a little bit outside her comfort zone. Well, when you talk about whitewater rafting, it is outside your comfort zone. You are putting yourself at risk, your life at risk. And I had this amazing experience because I brought myself outside of my comfort zone. Get outside. If you're an indoor person, get outside, find a trail, get out in nature, experience what it is to be outside. It's been proven that being outside gives you a big energetic boost that makes you feel connected, that helps you to appreciate things better. Spend time by yourself without listening to music or listen to a podcast or having to do something. Just be. Try to live in the now as much as possible. And I know that's all like woo speak, but it's really true. If you don't live in the past or the future, you force yourself to experience everything mindfully in the now, it's going to make a big difference.
And if you're a book person, one of my absolute favorite books, it's a super easy read. You can read it in a day, is Illusions by Richard Bach. It's a really, really good entry point if you're just kind of thinking about this stuff. So
I love it.
Very cool. I haven't even heard of that yet. So that's going on my list.
Oh, do we have a lot of lit books to send your way then? Because Bridge
Oh
Across
my
Forever
gosh.
and
But this book I've given to so many people and they always send it back and it is battered and torn, but it's been across the world. It's
That's
been
how
England,
you
it's been in South
know.
America, and they mail it back and write a little message in it. But it's a good book.
That's very cool. It's well loved.
Yes.
And it retains all that energy. That's more woo. But anyway, there's a lot of science, by the way, to back up the whole like Earth's energy like connection. Please, if you guys can interview somebody from the Heart Math Institute, if you haven't already. Whoa, mine will be blown there too. Please.
Thank you.
The Heart Math
Thank you for the
Institute.
referral. We'll definitely reach out.
Oh, good. So good. All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope to connect with you guys in the future. I know we will. We're going to connect in the future.
We look forward
And
to
we're
it.
going to make those plans.
And thank you so much for inviting
much.
us on. It's been I mean, we had so much fun talking to you on our show that it was nice to continue the conversation on yours.
Yes, for sure. Likewise. And I just want to keep talking and talking and talking.
I know, me too.
I thought that time didn't exist. What is this
It
about?
doesn't. It's just we're only
we bent
the
it
now.
the wrong way.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you. Take care.